A very good morning to you all and welcome to VPN here on 93.3 KFM this Saturday, the 6th of July, 2024. My name is Judith Atim, your host, and I am actually really excited. Today's topic is about Uganda's governance record, and also we shall be looking at Uganda-Kenya relations. We shall also look at Uganda's stance on corruption. Just how tough are we when it comes to fighting corruption? And the developments in Kenya for the past few weeks, in particular, the protests against the finance bill, which was finally rejected by President William Ruto. And now we see Ruto announcing a list of new austerity measures, including removing finance funding to money allocated to the First Lady, and actually a raft of measures that he's come up with that I'll actually be sharing with you shortly. And also the latest Afrobarometer report on democracy, which we've been seeing says Uganda is ranked as the second in Africa. We'll be looking at more of that later. And on Tuesday, Parliament convened to discuss the appropriation bill, which is basically how does Parliament allocate or reallocate money. This was after the president sent it back to the House to have some sections of the bill amended. The president was concerned that Parliament reallocated about 750 billion shillings without the approval of the executive. The president also wrote a letter to the speaker expressing his disappointment with the rampant cases of corruption in the House. In the letter, he noted that over the last 4 years, Parliament has relocated more than 3 trillion shillings without cabinet approval, meaning this is not a new thing, but he said this must stop. With me in the studio, I am privileged to have Mr. Henry Muguzi, the Executive Director, Alliance for Finance Monitoring. Also, I'll be joined later by Honorable Henry Okeloriem, the Minister of State for International Relations, is still held up attending to some crucial matters. But Henry Muguzi, welcome to VPN.
Thank you very much for having me, and of course, good morning to the listeners of KFM. And of course, as she was introducing the show, she spoke about democracy, state of democracy in Uganda as one of the things we're going to look at. And when I am here and somebody says we're going to talk about democracy, just to know that we are going to be waxing lyrical all morning long. So I'm looking forward to the show.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Henry. So let's just start with our stance on corruption. The president's letter to the House, read by the Speaker on Tuesday, was heavily worded. It was really, really strong when you look at the choice of words that he used. He sounded really tough in that letter, and he also sounded disappointed. Let's just look at the concern that people have that when we see the president also talking tough on corruption, he takes maybe a few steps backwards and becomes a little softer when he's handling some cases. We know there are members of parliament who are having cases in court over graft, from the Mabati saga to the recent reports of some members of the budget committee soliciting for kickbacks from the Uganda Human Rights Commission. We are seeing more scandals coming up. Money for cooperatives also being diverted reportedly for, corruption-related tendencies, and so on. And well, if you talk to some MPs, they say, well, the list is actually still going to grow longer. We've not seen that. This is not at the end of it. Maybe 30 or 50 MPs could actually be facing legal issues. So what do you make of these developments, the allegations that keep on coming up in terms of about corruption, and the action we are actually taking to stamp it out of the country?
Yeah, thank you. The president has always talked tough against corruption from the time he took over power. You shall remember that in the 10-point program that was introduced as the NRM took over power, I think corruption was number 4. So it was one of the reasons that he gave to justify why he had to go to the bush. And since then, he's always talked tough. The missing link, though, has always been action. And I think also the determination to go along, to follow through that action. And so when we speak about what's happening today in the country, where I think if you ask any Ugandan to list the top 3 biggest challenges of Uganda, corruption will be among those. And therefore, all the citizens understand, they kind of, in a way, the citizens have spoken unequivocally that corruption is a problem and that has to be addressed. And many of them have always, of course, decried the lack of action from the president. So I think after 38 years in power, the president has to demonstrate that actually he means what he says. And this is what we are about to see. Corruption has been appearing in many forms. The kind of corruption that the president is handling now is that which we refer to as political corruption. It's the corruption that takes place in political office, where political leaders use elected office to enrich themselves. And for the case of Uganda, I think the driving factor is to recoup the amounts they spent on campaigns. So we await to see what will become of those. But you know, the fight against corruption cannot be fought by one person. The fight against corruption cannot be fought from one direction. Corruption is so complex that to navigate the complex choreograph of corruption, you need to approach it from many directions, from inside, from outside, from top, from bottom. But most importantly, citizens have a role to play. And I liked when he started now calling out the local leaders, the LOCs, to also play their role, because many of us have abandoned our role. The citizens know corruption. They see the corrupt take the root. They know who has amassed what. They know who is doing which abnormal things. But often they don't report because everybody apparently seems to know that action has to be taken, but nobody wants to take the action. Everybody wants the other person to take the action. And therefore, I think also the president should also start now calling out the citizenry. But also, as you call out those, he should be determined to fight corruption, but also knowing that for any regime, as we've seen it in other countries in Africa, to be for a regime that has stayed in office for over 3 decades, it's, you know, it follows as night follows day that really corruption will be one of the factors that come to support that regime, because you know when it comes to elections, you need money actually to make sure that you get elected. And so most of the money, most of the proceeds of corruption then come back to finance politics, and then that starts to recycle itself. So the president is navigating a very complex choreography, and I don't know whether he will push through with this. Of course, detractors have continued to say that we've seen this before. He said it has spoken tough before. So I think until we see convictions, you know, convictions from the courts, you know, until we see people serving sentences, we shall continue to say this is just lip service. Because you remember, we've been here before. There was a time ministers, I think Jim Muguzi, Mukura and others were arrested and put in, but I think also Gilbert Bukenya, the vice president then. But of course, theirs was, you know, they went to prison with some mattresses, and then a few days later they came out. So the citizens have come to believe that this president may not necessarily have the wherewithal, but also the backbone to fight corruption. But of course now the tough talk he's having is something we need to look at. I see that he's calling out to everyone and reminding everyone that he means what he says. Let's wait and see what happens.
You actually hinted about something quite interesting, the monetization of our politics, and the fact that this is now a transaction. MPs spend a lot of money. They borrow, sometimes mortgage their property just to get that money and pay off voters so that they are voted in office, and then basically spend the 5 years trying to find every channel or every opportunity to recover the costs they've incurred. And now we just a year, actually. I don't want to count 2024. A year is almost done. So we have just 1 year to the next election. And do you think this could, in a way, this wave of corruption allegations that we are seeing could in a way be linked to the fact that people are trying to hoard money to actually boost their campaigns in the next election cycle?
Absolutely. Of course, everybody must know, and we have already said this, that the sources of money that finance elections in Uganda are very dubious, because nobody actually gets to know where they come from. But if you look at the way they are throwing it around, you can easily conclude that actually this money this is ill-gotten money that is being spent. So I think by this time next year, campaigns will have started, okay? Or they will be thereabout. So we are talking 12 months at the very best, campaigns start. So they have started hoarding and stealing for the next campaign. Remember, when you are elected in office, not only must you engage in corrupt activities to recover what you spent, but you also need to make sure that you amass a sizable war chest for the next election. And this is money you cannot get out of salary. And therefore, you have to engage in all manner of dubious activity to raise these funds. And therefore, it's quite a problem. And one of the things that are worrying is that when they get this money, they spend it on activities that, induce voters. All those activities they spend money on activities you can easily, categorize as voter bribery. And you know that bribery is a crime. So everybody knows that bribery is a crime, but you see, they go on and do it, and the law doesn't seem to be, catching up with them. So it's a worrying situation. But also, when we speak corruption, we always speak about enablers and accomplices. And I think the citizenry have been accomplices, because by so receiving, these being on the receiving end of cash or donations, whether it's community donations such as roads or bridges or boreholes, whether it is personal donations such as sugar or school fees, whatever you receive, without asking what the source is and what is the interest of the source that has provided that money, we are being accomplices as citizens and voters to this crime called corruption in campaign financing.
Well, this is interesting. Yesterday we had media engagements with Afande Edith Nakalema of the State House Investors Protection Unit. And one of the issues was how can the media create a good impression about Uganda so that we could attract more investors and more investment opportunities for the country. But when we have these kinds of situations of grafts, wide-scale graft playing out in the public domain, do you think how does this actually affect business for the country?
Thank you very much. One of the things I do, in addition to democracy, is I'm an anti-corruption activist, and so I engage a lot in knowledge production. So I do a lot of research. So recently I did I was, privileged to be a team leader when we were conducting a corruption risk assessment for the private sector, and we looked at four most significant sectors. We looked at manufacturing, we looked at ICT, we looked at construction, and the other one was, what was the other one? Yeah, there were four. So I was able to speak to as many private sector members. I learned that many of them have now fled to Kenya. Many others have simply closed the shop. I remember I went to this contractor who used to be a national contractor and said, I have demobilized all my equipment, it's there, and I would see it. And he's saying, I'm just waiting for 2 years now. The reason being that they've been fleeced. They cannot access a contract without paying. But the annoying thing is that even when they pay, they don't get the contracts. So he had said, I've lost lots of money, over, 10 billion.
Because the contracts are awarded to certain farms.
They come to you and say, there's this contract coming up, bid on it, but for you to win it,
you must.
Can you pay up front 500 million? And when you pay up front 500 million, they turn back and say, oh, you see, we are sorry, at the last minute, the minister came in and, these ministers and, overruled.
And your 500 million is not refunded.
Gone. And I asked them, why can't you then report? They say, we don't have evidence. Yeah. So I think also, in a way, also the private sector have been accomplices to this game that has. But the thing is that it affects business significantly. And so sometimes you cannot grow the economy in a context that is unethical. You see, ethical business practices sit at the root of economic development. And so there are companies that whose ethical behavior, counts a lot. For example, there are those payments they call facilitation payments. You come to a country like Uganda and you have to facilitate everyone in order for you to see, you access the president if you can, but also other ministers and all the other people who have power. In order for you to set up, because you need that. But you see, those facilitation payments in other legal jurisdictions illegal. So in other countries, if you're coming from a country where facilitation payments are illegal, then you cannot pay them. If you don't pay them, then you can't do business. So it really affects business. And to the comments of my sister Nakalema, you see, the media has done their work. The media cannot report what is not there. You remember, it's in the nature of the media not to report normal things but abnormal things. But also I have seen that the media in the past have done their best. They have reported on corruption. But you see, the problem with our citizenry is that a story on corruption does not elicit as much public response as a story maybe of Kimansulo. You see, so the media also, I think, needs to be cut some slack. But I think they've tried their level best. And if we want to sell this country, everyone in public office should know that they serve public interest. Because I have already said that the problem with Uganda is that we have in public office people who are serving selfish interests. And the people that serve selfish interests should be in the private sector, because private sector is about self. So there should be a way we are able to identify those who derive satisfaction from serving the public. But what we have at most in public office are those who derive satisfaction by serving self, and therefore they engage in a lot of corruption, looting and stealing to satisfy personal, to satisfy personal selfish interests. So these are some of the things we have, the challenges we have in our public service that we will have to deal with.
Interesting. Let's look at our neighbors here in the east. You've been following events in Kenya over the past few weeks. The protests against the finance bill, which Gen Z took on brazenly, and thankfully, the President William Ruto actually said, "Look, I'm not signing this bill. It is not a good bill for the country. I'll listen to what my citizens are saying." And now we see he's also come up with a raft of austerity measures, including, removing money for the First Lady. I think she was getting a substantial amount for her office. Let me just read this. It's somewhere here. So he's removed budgets for offices of the First Lady, the Second Lady. He's dissolved 47 state agencies after 3 weeks of anti-government protests. He also suspended non-essential travel for government workers, and also suspended buying new cars, and he's cut the number of his advisors by half. Just what lessons do we borrow from the events that have unfolded in Kenya, or events that continue to unfold in Kenya since reject finance bill?
Yeah, so thank you. I think for Kenya, we have lots of lessons to draw. If you look at the Gen Z of Uganda, their interest is not actually politics. So the Gen Z of Uganda do not care about what happens in the political arena or political space. The Gen Z of Kenya cares, and which is why you saw they were able to rise. The beauty of being Gen Z is that, or being young, is that you have nothing to lose. And you have this courage, limitless courage. And so, whereas the Kenyans are able to rise and demonstrate the power of the people, here our Gen Z, I think, is focusing on other things. But that said, you spoke about the austerity measures that President Ruto is taking. And of course, we have always wondered why there are always lessons. But we have always wondered whether our leaders actually learn. You see, you move to capitals of other countries, and these presidents and leaders also go to these capitals, and you come back to your own capital, Kampala. And because when you go there, there are too many lessons to learn. And for you continue to be in a state you are in, and you wonder whether they learn. Now, for the case of East Africa, we had one man, the late John Pombe Magufuli. When he came to office, he did not go into the dynamics of finance bills, but he just said, look, I'm just going to cut government expenditure. By cutting government expenditure, making sure, we spend a lot of money unnecessarily on those cars. Every time we buy those vehicles, there are too many attendant costs that, go with them, such as the costs of repair. You find that a vehicle is bought brand new. 2 years later, it is in the garage. Me, who bought mine reconditioned 10 years after it was manufactured, I can drive it for 3, 4, 5 years without going to the garage. But they always, those costs, the fuel costs, I think that's one area. But also the huge burden of public administration, of so many ministers, so many advisors, so many this, so many that. You cut those down. But I don't know whether he also chose to touch the office of the First Lady, because that now may destabilize his domestic affairs. But that's not... it is not my place to care about that. But by suspending travels, because one of the areas, for example, for Uganda, and I think Kenya as well, where government has been spending heavily, was on those travels, because those travels for politicians and the technocrats are not just travels, but they're also areas for fleecing, because someone goes for a safari of 3 days, and they would requisition for per diems of a month. So there are areas of looting. So if you cut down on those, you will be able to have saved a significant chunk of money that then you can repurpose for other things. So I think those are the lessons. But the other lesson is to listen, that the president has listened. In other countries, I don't know about ours, but I know in other countries, presidents don't listen. So the people would cry out, and the president won't listen. But Ruto has listened and said, look, in a democracy, the main principle is representation. So I don't own this country. I work for and on behalf of these citizens. If they have reason, that would happen. But the other thing I think I should not forget to mention is that when the Gen Zs rose, I saw other generations joining in.
Yes, eventually.
So it became a national issue. But also the fact that it resonated, it resonated in other counties. I think Kenya has about 46. 46,
47 counties.
Yeah, but in almost 90% of them, there were simultaneous uprisings. So it tells you that the citizenry in Kenya is at a level of civic competence where they are able to rise. Now, our listeners should understand that Chapter 3 of the Constitution of Uganda that speaks about citizenship says that you don't just get to be a citizen for citizens' sake. There are those duties that you must fulfill as a citizen, such as participating in fighting corruption, such as voting, but also such as rising up when bad things are being done, and demonstrate that you love your country by holding those that you have delegated power by electing them accountable. But here in Uganda, everybody is in this mode of Tebi Kwatako, and how can you be citizens and you think Tebi Kwatako? So we need to borrow a lot of lessons from across in Kenya.
Well, that's interesting. Now, earlier you were talking about when we were talking about the president's letter and how he's becoming tough on fighting corruption, depending on how one reads it. The issue of empowering LCs to also be involved in fighting graft came up, and I've just seen actually the term of office for LCs expired on 3rd July, just 3 days ago, but they've given them an extension for another 180 days. And government says they need at least about 50 billion shillings to hold elections for LCs. Now, if we don't have let's come and talk about this later. I mean, if you don't have security of tenure for some of these offices, how does this also impact on their ability to actually competently fight graft or handle whatever issues that are brought to them? We'll take a break and then we'll be back shortly to continue. 933. Welcome back from the break. This is still VPN here on 93.3 KFM. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you've just joined us, we are talking about Uganda's governance record. We're also looking at Uganda-Kenya relations. We're also discussing our stance on corruption, among a host of other issues. My guests with me in the studio right now, I have Mr. Henry Muguzi, who is the Executive Director, Alliance for Finance Monitoring. My other guest, Honorable Minister Henry Okello-Oryem, who is the Minister of State for International Relations, should be joining us shortly. He's sent in his apologies for actually showing up late. He's been quite held up with some other important activities. But Mr. Muguzi, before we went into the break, we were talking about still on the issue of fighting corruption and empowering local council officers to actually handle graft. And we know that their term of office expired, and government has given them an extension of another 180 days. That's about 6 months. And ideally, we're supposed to have elections held. And what is needed is about 50 billion shillings to hold elections. But government says that money is not readily available to actually hold these elections. So if you do not have people holding office when they're not guaranteed of that security of tenure. Some of them want to get re-elected in those LC positions and so on. How does this actually affect the functionality of these offices at the grassroots?
Yeah, of course, as you know, there are those instruments that the cabinet keeps producing that extend the lifespan of the duration of the LC officers by another 6 months. As we are now, we have another extension for 6 months. But if you look at what you just said, we need 50 billion to conduct the LC on elections. We cannot find that. But we are able to find 300 billion to bail out Rocco, a private company. It's like you are eating cake, you are able to find money to buy cake, but when it comes to buying gonja is too expensive. I mean, I think these are, it's an issue of misplaced priorities. And this is where the role of the citizens again comes into question, because citizens must understand that the closest they have to government, everyone in Uganda lives in a village. It's the LCs that give us letters to go and get bank loans, when we are going to get passports, when we are going to get indagamuntu. So they are the ones that arbitrate over disputes over land. They are very important and central to us. We see that government is consistently postponing the election, and we're quiet. We see that the government is instead finding 300 billion to bail out Rocco, and we're quiet. It's a matter of we see our rights being violated, because you see this also borders on political rights, because there are citizens that had wanted to stand and contest in these positions, and they are not being, given, allowed that right, because we know that the right to stand is a serious political right, the right to contest. But also that right to vote, the people to govern you. So that is consistently being denied. Extension is denied. Some in the courts of law, they say that justice delayed is justice denied. In this case here also, political rights delayed are political rights denied. So I think it takes us back to the citizenry to understand that we need now to get pressure to bear on government, demand that let there be no further extension. Let's have the election. We are going into the next election. I actually don't understand why the Electoral Commission did not include this budget in their 1.3 trillion budget for the roadmap, because this is very important. I think we are rendering that office almost useless, but also we are subjecting it to possible legal suits, because I'm sure there could be a few active Ugandans that may want to actually litigate, go to court and seek interpretation on whether the unending extensions of the term of office without consulting the voters, it does not tantamount to capture of the rights of the very voters that voted for those fellows. Who should be having the power to extend? Is it the voters who voted for them or the government? So I think it takes us in a situation we wouldn't want to get in. But I think I can only call upon government to take the citizens seriously and understand that we do not want to continue annoying or pretending the citizenry and pretending that they don't understand. These fellows understand, and that one day they may turn into something we may not be able to handle.
Still on the issue of corruption. Well, yesterday we saw this press release from State House about the creation of a new unit to oversee URA operations and fight corruption within tax administration system. And they say, well, the President Museveni has created the State House Revenue Intelligence and Strategic Operations Unit to do an oversight on Uganda Revenue Authority operations and fight corruption within the tax administration system. Now, I am not sure if this unit was budgeted for in this financial year. If it is, well, that's another conversation. But we already have a State House anti-corruption unit.
Correct.
We have the IGG's office. We have all these institutions, these agencies that are empowered, that have legal instruments to actually fight corruption. In your opinion, is this necessary?
So you have to have the State House, but also you have the one headed by Nakalema that is fighting corruption.
No, that one is for the investors' protection. Yes, that is to encourage investors. But you already have a Uganda Investment Authority, which is also attracting investors. You have the lands, the State House lands, something. Then you have the health monitoring unit. So all these parallel structures, and then the question now is who reports to who? What are the reporting lines seem to be blurred? Who answers to who in this case?
I think let me start by congratulating my brother Karemera of having been appointed to head this youngest unit to fight corruption. There was a time when people decried corruption in URA. I know for a fact that there used to be commissioners that owned warehouses, that if you imported your merchandise and did not clear, they would hold that merchandise not in the warehouses of URA, in their own warehouses. So there is no doubt that the corruption that has been ongoing in URA had reached a level where something had to be done. Whether that which has to be done was to set up this unit is a story for another day. But that said, I think we have tended to, sometimes I think that, in politics, I'm a student of political science, and I know one of the ways you can calm down the masses if there's been a scandal is for you to designate and appoint a commission of inquiry. So the people now will say, okay, that is being taken care of. But today you have traders rising, and meeting the president and revealing all manner of malfeasance in that office. It's clear that Uganda continues to lose revenue. It's also clear that there are quite a number of gaps that are being manipulated by the very corrupt officials. Like I said earlier, you have in public office men and women whose interests is to serve self, not the public. And serving self means enrichment. And therefore they become one of the richest men and women. They make everybody else look stupid. Now, but I think the creation of institutions has not helped. There was a time Uganda was leading, I think, in Africa in terms of anti-corruption institutions, and there was a time when the World Bank was, praising the efforts and promising that Uganda is one of those countries that should be, graduating into middle income soon. But as it came to pass, we know that those institutions were created not to fight corruption, but to be seen to be fighting corruption. I would imagine that this could also be the case, but of course we need to give them a benefit of doubt. But otherwise, there are so many institutions. You keep wondering. In business, we speak. There's where we speak about something called operational efficiency. So you must be able to analyze the amount of investment I am putting into something and what I get out of. So if we look at the investment Ugandans are making by sustaining those institutions, and like you said, I'm not sure this was in the budget, so we won't be surprised if in the next 1 month or so you see a supplementary, yes, to finance this and others. So I think Ugandans, we are good at taking in everything, and we are, I think, the calmest. I think we are cold-blooded almost. Our blood is so cold, it will never warm up. Yeah, but I think there are quite concerns there about the too many cooks that are likely to spoil the soup.
And that's when you were talking, I was also just thinking about this. If we are to gauge the effectiveness of, say, all these parallel units that have been set up, let's say the State House Health Monitoring Unit, the Investors Protection Unit, the Lands Protection Unit, and so on, I think it would be interesting to actually have a study commission to actually see how effective these institutions are in delivering on the promise that they set out to deliver. But if you are to just think about this, what would be your opinion in terms of effectiveness?
So I don't know. Actually, yeah, you can also add the question, why now? Yeah, because we are heading into an election, and the president is suddenly, emerging with some very tough talk against corruption, and he's setting up this institution at a time when traders are fighting IFRIS, and when they meet him, revealing quite a handful of maneuvers that have been ongoing. I wouldn't be surprised if actually fighting corruption is fronted in the manifesto as a campaign issue. That you see, if you want me to address this corruption-free Uganda, vote me for vote NRM for this. Yeah, but the thing is, what is the effectiveness? Because if you went and conducted an audit, you have the IG, Inspector General of Government, Inspectorate of Government, that at one time was trying to be innovative, and they said, let me do lifestyle audits. Because in this place we know there are quite a number of people who own property that is not commensurate with their earnings, their salaries. So this unexplained wealth. And you will remember what the president cautioned them about. Okay, but also you look at all these institutions that have been created. You know that corruption is quite a sophisticated crime, that every day it changes face. So you look at the budgets of all these institutions that have been created, and you wonder how much of that budget is dedicated to knowledge production. And so because, and you discover that not so much. And because not so much is dedicated to knowledge production, the men and women who manage these offices tend to only be chasing shadows of corruption because they are not able to cope with the sophistications, the levels of sophistications that corruption takes on every day. And therefore, they end up, being in place, but nothing changes. So I think the president has to understand that fighting corruption does not require the creation of too many, agencies, in football, for you to win a match, you don't have to put on the field half the players as strikers. You need one good striker, or two or three at most, to win a game. So we don't need all these institutions to fight corruption. All we need is a president who means what they say, a president that will encourage and embolden the judicial institutions to independently deal with those that are found culpable, but also one that would encourage and invest more in investigations. And also one that would be able to what's it called, to support and act on the information that has been given. But for now, I think we can see that the president is trying to tackle political corruption, the corruption in parliament. But a lot of people are saying there's where you've not touched. Touch there. Why do you always go for the small fish? So there's a big fish in parliament that the whole country is crying. Let's see how you deal with that. Yeah.
Well, interesting. We're going to open our studio lines shortly. I'll read the lines to you, and then we'll take a break, and then you could give us a call after that. The lines are 0393 933 933, 0393 262 933. You could also reach us on 0393 262 934, 0393 266 933, 0701 933 934, 0751 933 900. Any of those lines, you could actually give us a call and be part of the conversation here on 93.3 KFM. This is VPN. My name is Judith Atim. We'll take a break and we'll be back shortly.
933 933 KFM.
VPN. Keeping you up to date and informed. VPN. Only on 933 KFM.
Welcome back. You're still listening to 933 KFM. I think we do have a caller.
Good morning.
Good morning. Just give me one second.
Hello?
Yes, please proceed. Hello, good morning.
Thanks for the show.
Thank you for listening.
This is Yaba here in Naguru.
Yes?
I'm called Yaba.
Yes, Yaba.
I'm here in Naguru.
Thank you, Yaba. Yes, please proceed.
Now, I've had everything. But do you know that President is trying his level best, but will never go in the Mutaka? Why? Because how can you tell me that you want to end the corruption in Uganda, and yet you are still creating small department? You know that the moment you create the small department, this is how some people that are here gaining. That's why you see service delivery here in Kampala. Especially I'm talking about in Kampala here. Our roads are still very bad. We are still a poor hospital, no medicine, and you are still creating other department. How can you tell me that? These corruption people, the moment you open this unity, you are giving them to eat. And for us here with the committee, for us, we have been affecting. We are affected. Why? Because if you go to the hospital, you may not find any medicine because you are having your people, President Museveni, and you know that. And you know that. The best way you need to do, Mr. President, I'm giving just advice as Miyaba. The best way. Kind of scrap all units which you think that it does not give us effectively response. You just remove all these units. You remain with one unit, which you know it can help us as we wananchi. Thank you. This is Yaba from Naguru.
Thank you very much, Yaba from Naguru. There, voicing his frustration with the creation of more units, which he says are basically avenues for looting and so. Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, my name is Yusuf. I happen to run a shipping company dealing from China now. I'm going to talk about URA and that unit, basically, and how the entire operation is a scam and how it's not going to really open. And completely, this is my own opinion. URA itself is not organized or standardized. You import, we're a shipping company. We do clearing and forwarding. We import goods. Today, we pay a different tax for the same good. Tomorrow, we pay a different tax for the same good, same quantities, same amounts. The other day, another client comes complaining that they paid a very different tax, right? That's the corruption that we are facing that is within the system, not because these people exchange money, but because they don't have a standardized system. I trust these, tax leakages should be addressed first before the president thinks of these units. Number two, when you look at the URA officers, they take them to Chankwanzi, they train them, patriotism, what, but they are not motivated. And the way they get these jobs, it's not like they are qualified. They will give you a job because of, I'm sorry to say this, I don't want to be tribalistic or even sound like I'm one, but they are given because you're connected to someone. I can give you evidence of so many officers in a certain racket, especially enforcement. I can give you officers in intelligence, URA intelligence, when they are all from one region. And I tell you, how are they corrupt? I'm sorry, this might sound weird. They have a racket, they have a receiver of this money. Then it's like they are from one family, the way they coordinate to receive this corruption. I have done this to protect our clients. And that's the only way we can get fairness. And it's only because of the unstandardized, the tribalistic and the unstandardized systems of valuation, systems of verification, systems of tracking, tax leakages. They press you to the wall, and the only thing you have to do is to give them, under the table money. How is the president going to investigate this? These people, we've seen people, for example, there was this former commissioner for enforcement, I'm not going to mention his name. He quit because URA itself, this man was reporting to the president, directly to the president. He quit URA because these thieves or the corrupt officials could not even let him do his job. He quit. Now he got sick. He's broke right now on the street just because he could not really handle whatever that, the racket inside there. So before we really judge, or rather we get excited, there's this corruption unit that has been created to investigate URA, what. Let us first of all clean the system. Why should we get 3 different memos of valuation in DPC, Document Processing Center here in Nakawa? 3 different memos of the same item. Today a person brings, let me say, a cloth, a jean. Yes, it is hated, but why would they get $1.9 per piece, and then another one gets 2.4 for the same piece, and then another one gets 3.5? Yet they are the same pieces. This is why these traders are complaining.
Much Yusuf for your views.
Yes.
Hello.
Morning.
Yes, good morning.
Yes, I love this discussion so much.
May I know who I'm talking to, please?
And you're talking to Godwell always.
Yes, Godwill. Thank you for tuning in and for calling.
Always I'm tuned.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the issue of corruption, as I was growing up, first of all, I was to name my child as a corruption. As I grew up, I came to know that the corruption is just a way of sanitizing robbery and stealing. So that's when I came to know that it's something bad.
I think we've lost Godwill.
Your call has been put on hold. Please wait.
Okay. Hello?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you? I'm so grateful this discussion is happening.
Thank you. May I know who I'm talking to, please?
My name is Annette, an ardent listener of the KFM.
Thank you, Annette.
I don't know why the president is thinking that Ugandans do not have brains. First of all, you should be transparent. The very people he's appointing in the State House, it should be transparent and show the list to the public. These are people who are connected to him. Not transparent at all. URA right now is at a point, ever since Madame Kajina left, that place is so corrupt. In fact, it was even corrupt when she was still there. But because she had an eye on them, they were not so open. But today, I can tell you, everyone was going through there. There is money under the table. People are corrupt. So first of all, the president should first put out those lists of the various institutions, whatever they are called, he has put in place in State House. Show people the list. Be transparent enough and show the list that all the people who are employed under those units. I am not. Ugandans are not. They are people with brains. They know. You cannot fool them.
Thank you very much, Annette.
Yes, Atim. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Who is this? Who am I talking to?
Juma from the best roundabout.
Juma from Busega.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Thank you for serving the nation.
Thank you very much for doing your part.
Yes. So, you see, Uganda, we are in dilemma right now. President himself cannot convince Juma that he already clocking 40 years in power. I just realized yesterday where the problems of corruption in this country. Really? Then, if you know, let me go back a bit. No staff 1, no staff 2. What happened? Did it deliver? The answer is no. None. Did they deliver? The answer is no. Yoga. There was any good impact of Yoga. The answer is no. Now, he had promoted another one called PDM Parish Modo. Why don't you scrap? If you know that the staff Yoga, they failed, meaning that the people who are holding those offices, they were the very problems which killed that development. Now, you would have cut them off, then you bring this PDM. Now, again, I will say, judicial units, they are not worthy to the whole citizen. They are elected to apply powers as pertaining to their mandate. Someone has stolen a goat or domestic violence. When you ask for a bail, they will not give you a bail. Now, this is one person who's stolen billions of money, which can serve almost 10 constituencies in different districts. Just one day, the second day was given a bail. There is fairness in this country. It's sad, very absurd. Bye-bye, I wish you the best.
Thank you very much, Juma. We do appreciate your call and your views. Okay, I think that's it for now. We shall be opening our phone lines later. Henry, I don't know if you could like to respond to some of these reactions that are coming through. Yaba from Naguru says Museveni is trying his best, but why is he still creating more units? These are basically more avenues for corruption to actually manifest. Yusuf runs a shipping company. He says the entire operation is a scam. Basically, he's sharing his experiences in dealing with URA. He's decrying that the non-uniform taxes, no standardized fees or taxes. He says the patriotism trainings that URA staff or officials undergo does not equal to motivation. Jobs are not fairly given. Issues of tribalism and nepotism in the award of jobs. Godwill says, well, he thinks corruption is just a way of sanitizing robbery. What we're having is basically a wave of theft and robbery at a massive scale. Annette says, Ugandans actually are awake. We're not sleeping. URA, again, the issue of corruption. The president should be very clear on how he appoints people. Basically, she says he's appointing people connected to him. Juma says we're in a dilemma right now, and he's questioning the success of all these poverty alleviation programs we've had in the past, NUSAF 1 and 2, Emyoga, now we're having PDM, and he's also decrying the unfairness in our justice system. When you have someone involved in a small case, they're not given bail. But when you have someone accused of embezzling billions of shillings, they're given bail within a short time. Where's the fairness? I think that's what he's asking. Henry.
You see, every time you hear from citizens, you read one thing, that everybody is sick and tired of this corruption Yeah, of course, I don't know. I have also a question, because the other question is I don't know why the president thinks that fighting corruption requires you designating as many institutions as possible. For me, what I know is that that then undermines efficiency, because the common adage is that there should never be too many cooks in the kitchen. Otherwise, you are going to spoil the soup. So everybody sees it. I don't know why he doesn't see it. I don't know why he sees it that way. But I want to quickly jump to Yusuf, because you see, when I hear stories, I sit down with traders, and you hear stories about their experiences with URA, the corruption, that is so deeply rooted in that institution, is one that cannot be addressed by merely, designating another institution. It's one that may require you to kind of first dismantle the entire system, including the men and women that handle it. It's as if the moment you step into URA, then, you have gotten your ticket to wealth. So I think there are many things to deal with there. The manner in which they deal with the traders, the importers and exporters, but also the manner in which they deal with the ordinarily businessmen, those who are in the business of import is really absurd. So it's as if in their calculation of what you should pay, they intended to make sure they slap a very huge, bill that you cannot do anything but engage them in a discussion, and you can talk about. You see the syndicate he talks about. We know about corruption. Corruption is a crime of calculation. Corruption is a crime of collusion, syndicates, and therefore, and when it comes to corruption, everybody agrees with the other, and therefore, the efficiency of the corruption network requires, an approach that is different, that is much better than merely designating institutions. It is something that the president has to come up with. It is true there are leakages, but I'm not sure the best way to deal with them is to go for creation of new things. I have been reading here a theory. There's a theory developed by a Nigerian political scientist, Richard Joseph. It's called the theory of prebendalism, and in this theory, he tries to explain how rulers in Africa maintain power by distributing resources and privileges to loyalists and supporters, creating a network of patron-client relationship. It just sits in squarely with what Annette is talking about, what Juma is talking about. I think Godwell also tried to allude to it. The people understand and know that many of these institutions that are created are not created necessarily advanced efficiency, but to provide jobs to these children of the loyalists of the patent power, and but also the lack of a merit-based system in recruitment is also something to blame, because you see, the citizens, and they have done it here, the callers questioned the manner in which these get to office. Who gets there? Who are they? Can we get to see their names? Was the process of recruitment transparent? Was it open at all? Or was it that it was already designated? I will give you an example. Recently, when we were hosting the NAM conference, they created the NAM secretariat. But I will tell you that the staff that went to this secretariat were staff of men and women who are cronies of the regime in the government. So many of them had not even finished their degrees. They put them there. So ordinarily, they should have recruited people who are qualified, have experience, but they get someone who is in second year, and they put them there in NAM secretariat. They are there working. So what kind of efficiency are you going to get? So this has dysfunctionalized institutions in Uganda, killed them, hollowed them up. Corruption has hollowed them up. When they get there, the only thing they have on their mind is to loot and enrich themselves. In this country, if you are working with government and you are still poor after 2 years of working there, you are stupid.
Yeah.
So you get to see that everybody knows this. So this cannot be addressed by merely creating new institutions. But I think for me, the missing link is for the citizenry. The time has come for citizens to rise and pay attention. There should be a public reaction because you see, the principle of democracy is such that the people you have elected to govern you must be held accountable, because if you don't, they get into a comfort zone and they will do things that are not in your best interests as citizens.
Mm-hmm. Well, so yesterday, actually interesting about your friend who's been appointed to head this unit. There's this content that was flying around social media. Apparently, Mr. Kalemera had actually a legal case at some point in time. They say, David Kalemera, who has been appointed as Senior Presidential Advisor and Head of the State House Revenue Intelligence and Strategic Operations Unit, was convicted on charges related to tax fraud and corruption by Anti-Corruption Court Judge Lawrence Gidudu in 2022. He was found guilty of using falsified customs documents and conspiracy to commit a felony. Now, this and actually there are court records to show. I could share with you this. It was in the High Court Anti-Corruption Court at Kololo, criminal case number 7 of 2018, Uganda versus Kalemera David, accused 1, Semanda Ian Paul, accused number 2, and Kazibwe Ronald, accused number 3. But accused number 2, that's Semanda Ian Paul, had no case to answer. But not 1 and 3, that's Kalemera David and Kazibwe Ronald. So you have someone who basically understands the rot in the system, and you're appointing him to actually perform oversight in that system. Does that make sense?
So I used to watch it in movies. So in movies, if you're going to catch a thief, you send a thief to catch a thief. But you see, what this tells you is to reinforce the argument that what this the regime in office has done at most has been to entrust hyenas with goats, well knowing that it is in the very nature of hyenas to feast on goats. Because a person, yes, I know that Paul used to be Saul, but people change. Saulo became Paulo now. But you see, a person of this record, who you will actually also question, I don't know whether this goes through vetting in Parliament. Does it? Maybe it doesn't.
I'm not very sure about this.
Yeah, because any meaningful compos mentis legislator should question this. Why would the president go ahead? And should we think that the president is not privy to this information you have just shared? Because the facts are there. You go and open, this file number 7 of 2018, Uganda versus Kalemera and others.
And it wasn't that the case was struck off. Yeah. It went up to conviction.
And he was convicted.
It means the person was found culpable for the offense.
Correct.
So what does that tell you about the person's integrity? But that's also an interesting thing. When you also look at, this is also not the very first time that the president would be appointing someone with a tainted record to a position of power. I mean, you were talking about Global Fund earlier, about the Captain Mike Mukulas and the Jimweze's. I mean, despite everything that we went through, the prosecution and everything, you would actually think in a sober society that people like this would, they'll still be members of society, but not put in critical positions where money is involved, where sensitive decisions have to be taken on behalf of the citizens.
It has all the trappings of a leader that takes citizens for granted. I mean, he knows what are they going to do. These are Ugandans. Many of them, it's like they have taken an overdose of chloroform and they just simply gone to sleep. They just take in everything. Yeah, but I think any meaningful and government should look into these things. And I wonder, because you see, you cannot preach patriotism and do the opposite, because you see in Nigeria, they say that if you are a lizard on Monday, a lizard on Tuesday, a lizard on Wednesday, you cannot be a crocodile on Thursday. So they say na lizardi, na lizardo. So this person has been convicted of tax fraud, but you've gone ahead and appointed. Is the president trying to say that this lizard somewhere midweek became a crocodile or some other creature? You see, a lizard remains a lizard. So I think it goes back to us, the citizens. What do we stand for? Do we know that we are citizens who own this country, or are we mere occupants of this territory called Uganda? Because if we are citizens worth the name, then these are some of the things we should go push back and say, that one, no, based on his record. Unless if there's been demonstrable, demonstrable evidence that this person has changed or gotten born again. I know that the president keeps talking about...
this was 2022. This is 2024 is not yet even over. This is just 1.5 years.
Barely 6 years. I mean, you don't change in 6 years.
Barely 2 years.
So this is 2018.
This is 2022. Well, the conviction took place in... The case went to court in 2018, but it was
conviction 2022.
Yeah, 2022.
And then 2024.
So 2020, it's just 1.5 years.
Well, the viewers, I mean, the citizens, it's up to you. You know, it's your country. If you believe it's your country, then it should be your country. But these are some of the decisions that should be questioned, that citizens should push back on, that leaders in Parliament that are supposed to exercise oversight over the executive should push back on. This is what we want to be seeing happening.
Well, let's now move to the other issue, which is our governance record. The Afrobarometer report that says, well, I didn't actually read the full report. I just skimmed through. But what we saw, the headlines in the media was that, Uganda is ranked second in Africa. You took time, actually, you synthesized this report very, very well. Let's just look through some of the issues that maybe, the things that maybe you think stood out for you in that report, the good and the not so good.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you very much. This is a subject that I really enjoy. We can speak about democracy all day long. First of all, I think we should applaud the Afrobarometer, because they have consistently dedicated themselves to providing and producing knowledge that many of our governments don't invest in, but knowledge that is useful to turn around the democratization process of the country. One of the things, the highlights of this country, and where I think that headline was so misleading, where they came from, is that listeners must understand that Afrobarometer, when they go out to do their studies, they do not speak to governments, they speak to citizens. So that point was the point of commitment to democracy. So the citizens of Uganda rank second in Africa. I think they are second only to the citizens of Zambia in their commitment. So the ones that are committed to democracy is not government, it's the citizens. The citizens of Uganda are saying, knowing our history, embattled history, where we've gone through many decades of bloodbath, we don't want to go back there. We want, and as restating that the best system of governance in Uganda is a democracy, and that's how we want to be changing leadership. But the thing is, whilst, because the study, puts it at 62%, the percentage of Ugandans that are committed to democracy, but when it comes to the state supplying democracy, the score is 34. So the headline was misleading. The other one that is a highlight is are the views on multi-party politics. Okay. Again, Ugandans are among the top Africans in support of multi-party politics. Okay. Whether the regime in place is delivering and supplying the same is another story. Yeah, but the other one is about accountability. So in this study, only 15% of Ugandans trust members of parliament. 75% have said in the
Say
study.
that again, how many?
Only 15% trust
members of parliament.
85% of the respondents, and these were basically 70% rural, are saying that members of parliament are serving not our interests, but their selfish interests. 85%. No wonder, so we won't be surprised if we had a huge turnover in 2026 of parliamentarians, because citizens are saying they are not serving our interests. But at local government level, only 25% say that the councillors are serving us. 75% are saying they are also serving their own interests. There is an issue on multi-party politics. Now, the study reveals that many more Ugandans, about 60%, feel that they are very far away from political parties. Political parties are very far away from us, and actually they also don't trust the political parties. But but let me first speak about it being very far away. Why are they far away? I think the regime in office should take a blame on this one, because you see, the reason people are far away is that they've not been allowed the privilege of getting up close and personal to political parties, because in this country, political parties are only supposed to are kept on leash. Their activities are limited to Kampala and their headquarters. They cannot be allowed to go to the citizenry and sell their agendas, recruit members. Because that does not happen, the citizens are saying political parties are very far from us, and we're getting into an election in the next less than 16 months, and people are saying political parties are very far from us. Now, there is in terms of trust to political parties, less and less people trust opposition political parties. The trust of opposition political parties is standing at 34%. Now, that would be 66% of Ugandans do not trust opposition political parties. It means, therefore, that the political parties in opposition have to go back to the drawing board and rethink. Because I think their enemy may not necessarily be the regime in place as of now. Their enemy is, how do we build the trust? But earlier on, before Afrobarometer put out this survey report, I also had reviewed the report of Transparency International, another survey, where citizens were asked to mention the top 5 most corrupt institutions in Uganda, and political parties are ranking number 5. So the political parties also have to clean their offices. But apparently, from this study, you discover that more people trust the party in power than trust opposition. But that trust of the party in power is also below 50%. So the performance is still not good, because I think the trust for the party in power is about 44, while the one of the opposition is about 34%. The other thing that was highlighted in this report was the support for public dialogue. The citizens of Uganda say that they would want dialogue, there to be dialogue, so that, for example, on most of the things that the most controversial things, for example, people are concerned about how to transit from the regime we are in to another regime. And of course, the people are also aware that in any country that has never witnessed a peaceful transfer of power is always a candidate for turmoil. So that happened as well. In terms of so the study talks about quite a number of things. Less and less people see the opposition as a viable alternative, according to Afrobarometer study. Less and less Ugandans are seeing it as a viable alternative. Now, Electoral Commission.
Can we come back to that after the break, Mr. Muguzi? If you're listening in, we are now discussing the Afrobarometer report, which is basically about our state of governance, how democratic we are. What do citizens think about the regime, our opposition parties, our political parties generally, our elected leaders? Do you have confidence in the establishment? Do you have confidence in the government? Those are some of the views I would like to hear from you after the break. I'll read to you the studio lines once again: 0393 933 933, 0393 262 933, 0393 262 934, 0393 266 933, or 0701 933 934. You could also reach us on 0751 933 900. This is VPN.
VPN. Views, people, and news. VPN. Only on 933.
Welcome back from the break. This is a VPN here on 93.3 KFM. My name is Judith Atim. We were discussing now the issue of our governance as highlighted by the Afrobarometer report. And Henry, you were talking about now electoral commission. What do these findings tell us about? We have a caller. Oh, fine. Let's first pick this calls, and then we will actually proceed with that conversation. Hello.
Hello, morning.
Yes. Good morning.
Yes. Good back again. Let me try to make my point.
But your line is not clear for some reason. I don't know why.
I think it's a network problem. Is it okay now?
It's still shaky.
Okay, what of here?
Better.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
President, during COVID-19, we all saw the appetite and the enthusiasm he had for fighting COVID-19. And that spirit, if it was to be the one to fight corruption in this country, people, my dear citizens, please, we are going to face corruption within. It took President only even like 6 months to eliminate Corona. But why has it taken almost 40 years for President to eliminate a mere corruption? As we citizens, we have not given up. But our problem is now we are doing our best to fight corruption. But the problem is up. The problem is the president. He keeps appointing people in different departments. These are people who have cases. They have cases, they have a backlog, and the president keeps appointing them on these departments. If he wants to fight corruption, he would have fought corruption longer time. There's a Bible quotation which says, "My people will perish because of lack of knowledge." I want to ask this gentleman, who has bewitched Uganda? Tell me.
He also doesn't know, I'm sure. Hello? Okay, well, Godwell raises a very interesting issue. Well, during COVID, the president showed good leadership and fought COVID, like face on, and we need to see the same passion and leadership in fighting corruption. Well, I must also say that when it comes to also fighting HIV, I think the president actually led the country very, very well in fighting. Well, we still have HIV, but I think when you look at the face of HIV back in, say, the 80s and 90s, is not the face of HIV that we're seeing today. I think we can actually give him credit for that. And I do agree, if he puts his mind to something, definitely he will get rid of that problem. I think that's what Godwill and a lot of people actually are trying to say here. Henry, let's go to the issue of governance. Let's continue. Electoral Commission.
Yeah.
That's where we want.
So the Electoral Commission, the trust in the Electoral Commission is actually also appalling, because according to the study, only 41% of those people, of the respondents, felt that the Electoral Commission is neutral. 59% think it is not neutral. And about 57% also think that it is favoring the party in power. So that is an indictment. The same survey, looks at the results of the previous election in 2021, and based on that, you see that people were quite discontent at the results that the Electoral Commission put out, and so that did not help the trust. Okay, but what constitutes trust of the Electoral Commission? We have to understand that the Electoral Commission, as being electoral umpire, is doing quite a job that nobody would envy to have. Number one, it's very difficult to satisfy everyone, because everyone would want to win, and if they don't win, then the Electoral Commission is biased. But one of the points that I think the voters were putting across was the fact is the fact that the lack of transparency, especially in the way the results are being transmitted. People have gone to the tally centers and they don't understand how those numbers come about. But also the delays. Sometimes the Electoral Commission delays to announce winners, even when the results have all come through, especially if the winner is from opposition. So all these things come to play into the trust of the Electoral Commission. So I think the Electoral Commission now becomes a target. But also one thing I liked, when people were asked about to rank the institutions that they trust most in managing elections, the study says that 59%, which is a majority then, would trust local and international observers more than they would trust the courts of law, the UPDF, the Electoral Commission, and so on and so forth. So when you look at the trust in the other institutions of democracy, those that have a role to play in elections, such as courts of law, the UPDF, Electoral Commission, police, presidency, the party in power, opposition parties, and so on, we see that all of them scored below 50%. Now, for this to happen, for a score of less than 50% to be recorded, shows that there is gross underperformance here. And if we have decided that Uganda is going to be a democratic country, a lot more has to be done. For example, the courts of law, in terms of trust, they need to demonstrate that they are impartial. The People's Defense Forces has to demonstrate that there are a people's force, not a regime's force. Okay, the Electoral Commission has to demonstrate that it is independent, just as the name presupposes, and so on and so forth. And for this trust to be rebuilt, I think deliberate efforts have to be taken on their part. I have always wondered why the Electoral Commission doesn't do those things that don't necessarily require, amendment in law. For example, the increase in transparency, that does not mean require amendment in law. The improvement, such as increase, extending the date, the cutoff date for, what's it called, registering, first-time voters. Those are things that the Electoral Commission can do to build the trust of the citizen. But after overall, I think I should mention the point as well about fear. Because the study also pointed out the issue of fearfulness, that majority of many Ugandans say, yes, we want democracy, we want elections, but they are fearful of participating in these elections because of the violence that has come to bedevil our elections. And they have pointed out political parties in opposition as the leading perpetrator of violence. And I remember in the space we were at, one of the members of the audience then questioned, where does the security agencies rate at? But the citizens, according to this survey, think that political parties in opposition are leading perpetrators of violence, and about 41% of the respondents believe this. And then 29%, only 29% believe that it's the political party in power that perpetrates this violence. So, but violence is something that I think has become a mainstay in our elections. It is one of the things that are, undermining the people's exercise and enjoyment of their political rights, such as the right to vote. And so it is something that we need to actually look at very seriously. And I think it was on this point when people then proposed that it is important to embrace national dialogue so that those things, those questions that have not been answered for the longest time can provide answers, and that people speak to begin to dialogue. Maybe they will vent their anger and you know, you kind of offload the burdens they have carried for many years. I think in a nutshell, that's what the report talks about. But it's quite an interesting piece. Which I think gives us a lot of work to do for us as organizations that work on democracy. But I think also the leaders of political parties have their work cut out, and the party in power, I think the indictment is on it to make sure that it improves the context within which elections are conducted, so that people believe and start to feel that they are closer to political parties, because we know that it is unimaginable that democracy can exist without political parties. But these political parties must be functional, and to be functional, the regime must put in place a context, an environment that enables political parties to be functional. It's not a crime for a political party that has been registered, duly registered, to go and speak with the citizens across the country. And you cannot avoid being criticized if you are the party in power, because by their very nature, opposition political parties will point out things you're not doing so well, and when they point out the things you're not doing so well,
you improve. It gives
you improve them.
Yes.
So and that's also a principle of accountability, that someone points out the things you're not doing so well. And by pointing out the things you are doing so well, you are not becoming an affront of the party in power, but you are just trying to say that a lot more needs to be done on that, area.
Well, if you're listening in, we're opening our phone lines. I would like to hear from you in relation to this report from the Afrobarometer. Do you trust the government or your elected leaders or the political parties? And what do you think these institutions should do to win your trust as citizens? Those are some of the things I'd be interested in hearing. So just feel free and give us a call anytime from now. But before we actually get these calls, we have a caller? Well, not yet. The calls will come in later. But, Henry, what does trust building look like?
So trust has been actually for us, for me, my organization, we are now picking up this thing of trust and trying to break it down. What constitutes it?
Exactly.
Because when people say trust, trust in what? So we want to break it down. So in the context of the study, they are saying trusting that they will deliver what they promise on the promise. Yeah, that's the trust. But we want to break it down more because trust has many ingredients. But when they say trust, for example, in the leaders, that the first one is about how they first of all, deliver on their promises. Are they able to deliver what they promised? Number one. Number two, that when they are on the floor, the kinds of things they pick interest in and do they resonate with our reality and so on?
Yes.
So that is another element of trust. The third one is when we call upon them, do they come back to us and report? So that we really believe and feel that these are the leaders to whom we delegated our power. That could be one of them. But the other one is that when there is a matter of national concern, what position do they take? Do they take the position that aligns with the voters, or do they take
their personal
another
interests?
one? Yeah. So trust is quite a big thing, and one of the reasons I said that this report is good because for us now it gives us work to do.
Yes.
In terms of interrogating this more.
Hello.
Yes, yes, hello.
Good morning.
Yes, morning, madam.
Yes, please. May I know who I'm talking to?
Willie back again.
Who?
Godwill back again.
Godwill, yes.
Yes, now on that trust, on the Afrobarometer study, these are basically our views, isn't it? So trusting electoral commission, to me, that is 100% correct study, because we don't trust the electoral commission because they are too partisan and they don't listen to our opinions. Two, trusting citizens. Okay, trust in parliament. Citizens believed. Okay, let me say myself as a citizen. I trusted Parliament from 1996 to 2011. But since then, the Parliament we have is totally of complaints, corrupt, and they don't articulate our problems. Because the moment you elect a leader reaches Kampala and it rests there. Instead of coming to people of Arua, they will just come, they distribute salt to deceive people, and mainly you find that it's the women who normally now vote. People like me who have lost trust. Me, I really vote now because now distributing salt to beg for a vote. And moreover, is the MP. I'm really part of and sorry for all these things that are happening in Uganda.
What can be done for you to actually have trust in these institutions like the EC, Parliament, and so on?
Now, I prefer dialogue. These people should come back because we have our MPs, former MPs, that are back with us, and they have something to tell them. Please, like we sent you, you are now part of us. What was there and what is not there now? So we need to come back and discuss. You dialogue on these things, and I think Uganda will improve. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Godwill, for your views. Godwill says he doesn't have trust in the EC. It is partisan. He only trusted Parliament between 96 and 2011, but he doesn't trust the institution anymore because of corruption, and he thinks the leaders there are mostly incompetent. Yes. He thinks there's need for dialogue. Yes, hello?
Yes, please.
Good morning. Hello?
Yes.
Who am I talking to?
Yes, my point is...
Who is this?
This is Juma from Busega.
Juma, yes, Juma.
Yes.
What do you trust the government or your elected leaders or your political parties? And if not, what should be done to actually build your trust and confidence in them?
But, we do trust. Okay, I had a trust. But as I'm talking now, I've lost that trust. I lost that trust. Our parliament have not got that standard of debate. How can you give 3 minutes to a member of parliament to represent what they want to represent to the parliament? Then you, the speaker, you give them 3 minutes. In that 3 minutes, someone has not even spoken 1 minute. Another person has risen up. Point of order, chair, order. No. At the end of the day, 3 minutes consumed on air and nothing. That's why our service deliveries is at stake. Standard of the parliament need to be checked upon.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. Juma says he had trust some time back. He no longer trusts, has that trust. Parliament has no standards for debate. The time they allocate to legislators is actually it's limited. That doesn't allow them to articulate issues. But that's also because of the huge number that we have. Hello?
Yeah, this is Saranja.
Saranja, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you.
About the trust issue of these political parties and MPs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 32 years of age. I've seen a trend since I started. I realized the politics of Uganda and the environment.
Mm-hmm.
The most vocal MPs end up getting sick. They end up dying. They end up getting funny diseases, and we end up losing them. I mean, look at this Segrinya. The Segrinya, everyone is wondering, is he really sick naturally from natural causes, or he's just, a culprit of his vocalism? This Chanjo, the late Chanjo, God forgive his, rest his soul. These were vocal MPs, the Noble Mayombo. Now, these MPs, imagine sitting in a room whereby when you say something that really pains the government, you'll be the one, to pay for whatever you're representing. So, yeah, the trust would have been there. But the system itself, you cannot really speak against the man. I don't belong to any party, but then these guys are scared. Even the NRMPs, they know that something is wrong, but they just cannot sit down, or rather stand up and face the man himself. So, yeah, we might trust the MPs for formality, but then the system does not let them exercise their duty, the job that we appointed them to do, right?
Thank you, Lord Siranja. Hello?
Hello, Judith.
Yes, good morning.
Yes, I'm Sky.
Who is this?
I'm Sky. And you forgive me that I hustle on the roadside where sometimes the cars be moving. But I would want to give my view.
Please go ahead. May I know your name?
I'm Sky. Call me Sky.
Sky.
Yes, Sky as S-K-Y.
Okay, Sky. No problem. Proceed.
Really honestly, I'm so disappointed. I'm so bitter. I'm so angry. There's nothing to appreciate in Uganda. Even when I want to, I only appreciate God for the weather and oxygen that I breathe. For that sake of all leaders in Uganda, I swear tell you the truth, I wish them nothing but hell. These are the people who have caused us a lot of pain. As age of 32, I feel like we are being betrayed so much. The youth that are not allowed to speak for themselves. We are tormented. We are hurted. So all we do for crying out loud, if Muslim and his people feel like they are in the greater world, they don't want anyone to oppose them. Kindly, system. What's the use of multi-party system if you cannot allow Sky to support Loop, if you cannot allow the other one to be in SDC? In this particular, we have one targeted group of youth Loop where everyone is supposed to be arrested and tortured and shrunk and doing a lot of evil work. That's so bizarre. And then we have arrogant Anita Amongele. God, it's so sad that she's using her power to abuse others. Like she has not even sympathy for others. You arrest a woman for just pointing a person that you should resign. You already seen someone in prison. These are bad things happening before our eyes. We are so bitter.
So I do understand, and I just have that empathy for what you're going through. I understand that kind of anger. I think a lot of Ugandans are simmering actually with so much frustration, so much pent-up emotions, and they just don't have an outlet. But I do appreciate you for sharing that vulnerable side of you with us. Thank you very much.
Hello?
Hello? Yes, one more caller.
My name is Dennis Asimwe.
Yes, Dennis Asimwe.
Yes, you see, what options do these people who participate in Afrobarometer surveys and other surveys have? The opinion you have is a function of information you get.
Yes.
So right now, they are flooded with everything from Kenya. How are they going to think? You see, there is... you cannot make a survey right now and think that you have even gotten the right understanding of the Ugandan psyche.
No, this survey was not conducted now.
It was done last year.
It was done last year, yes.
Yes, but what I'm trying to say is, I'm giving an example.
Yeah.
At the time when they did that, you can trace back and know the events around that time and know what shaped the understanding then.
Yeah.
So for me, I am just saying that if we don't have honest news givers, then we are in trouble. We are actually raising the dust. You see, the faceless riots in Kenya, they don't have a face. Is it necessarily good? Is it necessarily good for democracy? Is it necessarily good for development? When you can just, you can just give people an analysis. There is someone, Lumbuye, somewhere abroad, Turkey, somewhere, everybody is giving analysis and throwing it down. And it is going around, You cannot have a situation where you also have another army rising up, and then you have another one which also has bullets, but then you also have another army which is also this way. So there is a lot going on, and it shapes whatever will be the total sum you will get in the research. And unfortunately, we actually could lead to what? Now, just let me give an example as I live. I saw a headline yesterday in Nation Media that the budget Ruto now has given means that there will be not, it will be funded much higher by IMF. But the guys on the street themselves were saying that IMF was a problem. Now, the debt is going to even increase with IMF. So what are we solving here? So do the people really know what they're standing for? So for me, I tend to shoot everything about these surveys. It is just, I don't think they're even helpful anyway. So that's
Dennis, I would just like to know, as a citizen, do you have trust in the government or your elected leaders or political parties?
One and the same. They don't have solutions.
But what should then be done to win your confidence and your trust?
Now, this is the thing that should be done. We have a system that collects from people who seem like they have already made it. In a sense that if you stand and become an MP, then maybe now you have the view. Now, if you have ever gathered people for a riot somewhere, then you're the one who should actually be an influencer. So what should happen actually is that when you are collecting views and ideas, collect them from a source that is not those who are already in positions. The people who will give when they don't even need to benefit from the very views they are giving in terms of selfishly benefiting.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dennis Asimwe, for your views. Well, Dennis also says he does not have trust in either the current regime or the one in waiting. And, well, we can have this conversation all day, but just your thoughts to some of these issues. Seranja actually raised an issue. Political parties, some vocal MPs fall sick under very questionable circumstances. Some have sadly died. We've seen that happen. And he wonders, so there's actually also a lot of fear that has led a lot of people into self-censorship, because if you speak up against some of the ills that you see unfolding in society, you fear that, well, the system will come after you. And that's a very unhealthy environment for a country that should actually be democratic.
Indeed, and that's a fear, because you see now this coming from the citizens. The citizens have worries, and I think everybody has listened, and you see people fear, and this fear I think must extend also to the leaders in the parliament, who they then fear to speak. No wonder when you look at that house of 557 legislators, only a handful can speak. Maybe one of their fears is this one, because now this is what the citizens are saying. But let me jump to the issue Godwell raises of the issue of the EC being perceived to be partisan. I know that currently the EC is trying to rebrand and navigate that narrative, because now they are trying to reach out to as many stakeholders as possible, including the voters. They've been going around the country. Hopefully this will do, they have opened doors to listen to all citizens of good thought, as long as if you have an idea of them improving their trust, so they can be trusted more. So it remains to be seen where this will take us. Now, of course, now Juma, when he speaks about the standard of debate, for me that's also my biggest concern, and I have always shared with my colleagues that I cannot even look forward to aspire to become an MP, except if I'm just getting an opportunity to go to the MP and to go to Parliament
and speak and share your views
and dress myself with a suicide vest so that I can blow up that house.
No.
Yeah, but this is just me. It's just being radical. Yeah, but because you see, Parliament, many citizens are saying it has not served our purpose, and no wonder in Tunisia, the president in Tunisia disbanded it because he said the citizens don't feel it. Yeah, but in terms of Sky, you see, you hear the anger of Sky is the anger that many Ugandans have. When you hear them out, everybody is angry. And I don't know whether this anger will evaporate, whether it will erupt. Yeah, but people are angry. And of course, the issue is Uganda, as she says, the only thing she wants is the weather. She enjoys in Uganda is the weather. And we have always said, one of my colleagues said, Uganda, a country gifted by nature, but cast by greed. So it's a country that everybody wants to live in, but a country which has been bedeviled by the behavior of the men and women that want to appease themselves now. Dennis, you share the thoughts of many Ugandans who don't trust neither the political parties in the opposition.
We have 1 minute to go, Henry.
Nor the party in power. So I think going forward, is that we need to understand as citizens that we have one country called Uganda, and that the constitution that we have crafted bestows on us the responsibility to fulfill those duties as prescribed in section 17. I thank you for hosting me.
Thank you.
It's been an honor for me to really share my thoughts with you.
Thank you so much. Henry Muguzi, the Executive Director, Alliance for Finance Monitoring there, who's joined us on VPN today to discuss Uganda's governance record and a host of other issues, including Uganda-Kenya relations and our stance on corruption. Well, our other guest sends his apologies. He's actually he's having other important state engagements, and that's Minister Henry Okello-Oryem, the Minister of State for International Relations. We hope to have him some other time. It's been a pleasure having you here, Henry, and to all of you who tuned in and listened and called in to make your contributions to the show. Much appreciation to each of you. Thank you very much. My name is Judith Atim. We'll have this VPN again on next Saturday, and hopefully different conversation. Hopefully you'll still tune in and share with me your thoughts and be part of the show. Thank you very much. Have yourselves a wonderful weekend.
3933